was an adjudicator, and I would get cases, and I would review the facts, and I would conduct an investigation, and I would render a decision based on the law. So I was working for the Employment Security Commission even during the pandemic. For, you all remember the pandemic? For a whole year? For a whole year, I worked 7 days a week during that time. I mean, I've worked with them for 16 years, but during that time, that horrible time, I worked 7 days a week. I worked Mother's Day. I worked Independence Day. I worked Thanksgiving. I worked my children's birthday. I worked my own birthday. Because every single day when I opened my email, there was thousands of emails from people desperate. They would send me pictures of their children sleeping in the backseat of their car because they were now homeless. Because their income had been stopped. And if you all remember, a lot of people were well, we opened up a new set of claims. We had traditional, we had a new type of claim. We were trying to get computer systems, but you might not know was that leading up to the pandemic, we had had a really good period of really low unemployment. So as people retired, they didn't replace them.
Right.
So there was 29 people in the whole state to work a record amount of claims. 29 for the whole state. It takes a really long time to learn the law, to learn all the things about the employment law. So it's not something we could just do a fast track and train you really quick. No, that's not how any of that works. People would call the call centers and they would be put on, well, a waiting list to get a call back maybe several weeks later. It was terrible. It was a terrible time. The only time that had come close to that was during the recession. I worked there as well.
Yeah.
So I have been through it with that agency. The pandemic was by far the worst. It was probably the most emotional. We had getting just the desperation, the desperate pleas was more. It was so hard. But I stayed through the whole thing, through the whole pandemic, and then at 2021, as people started going back to work, everybody started going back to work. Finally, they all started going back to work. And a friend of mine calls me, just like most people, I didn't come from money. I don't. 85% of our state makes less than $75,000 a year. 85% of our state earns less than $75,000 a year. The majority of us. I didn't come from money. So like most people, when you're working your way through school, I worked. I had to. I didn't have a choice. I still had the calluses on my hands from working construction. It's not something that most women do, but it pays well. And then you ever shake my hand, you're like, I hate you, rub hands. That's because I did. I worked in construction. But shortly in the early parts of 2021, a friend of mine who I had one of the few people who would give me an opportunity to work and construction in the, I don't want to say what year because that tells you how old I am, but a long time ago. And he calls me, he said, I need to retire. I had a heart attack and I have to retire. I don't trust very many people to take over my business, but I trust you. Would you please consider it? It's been a rough year, and finally people were back to work, and I thought, you know, call center database is catching up now, and I really, I'm just kind of tapped on this. So I said, you know what, I will. I invested in my retirement, and I left, and I went to work for him. I stayed with him until his second heart attack took his life. So instead of getting my hands more callous than they already were, I was the manager. I was a developer, a construction manager. After that company took his life, I went into another company recruited me. Literally 2 days later, recruited me. And it was similar work, more expanded. We had a footprint in multiple states. I was telling somebody here that I finished a project on Dory Lane here in Broken Bow weeks before I filed for my election to run for this seat. I actually worked here a little bit the first month that I was campaigning. As a construction manager, one of the things that I would often have to do is read construction plans. Very familiar with utilities, very familiar with easements, very familiar with all those PUDs that I've been reading ever since I started. So now I get to tell you the fun part, the part that gets me all excited, and I get to tell you all about being experienced. They built a data center not far from my son, not far from my grandchildren. Project Anthem. Later, we came to know it as Meta. My son lives on 13th, they built it on 11th. That's how close it is to where my grandchildren live. My grandchildren also have asthma, extreme asthma. So I started doing a little homework and I realized that it is potentially could cause severe respiratory illness with somebody who already has a chronic condition. I didn't like that, and I got invited to go to a picnic on my grandchildren's playground. My grandchildren live in Tulsa, northeast corner of Tulsa, very diverse neighborhood, also a low income neighborhood, but it's also very close to my son's job. He really likes the neighborhood, lived there for 10 years. He likes the diversity, he likes the community, and he's been very happy there. But the school that my grandchildren go to, I was shocked at how much the equipment was in disrepair. The playground equipment, the toys, these are elementary school kids. And I'm seeing the peeling of the coating off of the metal framework for the tables, and I'm seeing rust sticking out, these little shards sticking out. So I'm thinking these kids are just running. At this point, I'm trying to corral children not to get hurt, because kids are gonna do what kids do on a playground. They're gonna run and jump and fall and do all the things. And I was just shocked. And then I got mad. Because when I went home and I read, because I knew that, this is Tulsa. They get all kinds of tax money. So I started reading, because I thought, Meta's right there. So I started reading planning report, because that's what I do. I like to read planning reports, that's the construction part of me. And they got an 85% tax abatement, tax discount for 25 years. That's the moment I got really, really mad. I got really mad, and then I started digging, because then there's one popping off in Sand Springs, another one popping off in Okmulgee, and another one popping off in Claremore, and another one in Piedmont, another one in Luther, and another one down here, because I traveled down here to a county commissioners meeting, visit with these folks over here months ago, right after I filed, because there was rumored to be one coming this way. I actually went to an Idabelle's County Commission. Probably go to more county commissioners and city council meetings than I even do these types of groups, because that's the thing that I cared about, it's the thing that I was really worried about. And that smelter, if you're not familiar with that thing, that nasty little thing too. There's seats over here, come on in, you won't bother me. So somebody had, we talked about these things. This seat, if you're not familiar, the Corporation Commission, I told you the role that the commissioners actually do, they do the cases and the reviews, but the different agencies and different things that they are overseers of, regulators of, would be a lot of the energy sector, public utilities, telecommunications, a little bit of trucking. Our trucking goes under the DOT, part of it's under OCC. Cotton gins. I don't know about you all, I'm from the eastern side, I'm from LaFleur County, by the way. I live just north of you, just north. I traveled over the mountains to get here. Little bitty one-stop light town called Spiro, if you're not familiar. Do any of you know where that is? I live in a one-stop light town in Spiro, Oklahoma. So when I started this race, somebody asked me, they said, what do you do? You're from LaFleur County? Do you even know anybody in politics? No. Do you have any money? No. Do you do you think you're going to be competitive? I'm going to give it my best shot. So I did not make up my mind for sure to decide to vote or to run until April 2nd. I knew that the best way to stop this invasion into our rural lands, I grew up on a farm. I grew up collecting eggs for breakfast. You want breakfast, you go collect the eggs. I grew up snapping beans in the evenings, because Granny said you gotta snap the beans, you gotta put them away. And I grew up feeding baby cows. I'm grew up milking a cow. Maybe get only candidate that actually milk a cow, but I can do it. When we lose in rural agricultural land to industrial, it never comes back. It's not. I was talking to my sister on the way down here, we traveled over Winding Stair through the mountains. We were looking at all the mountains, we were looking at the hills, and we were looking at this, and I said, the people who live in these hills, the people that live in these areas, they can choose to live anywhere in the world. If they wanted to live in an industrial city, that's where they live. They don't wanna live in an industrial city, they wanna live in the country, they wanna live in the mountains, they wanna live in the trees, they want to live near these lakes. If they wanted to live in the industry, that's where they would choose to live. They don't want this invasion of heavy industrial into their areas. That's the difference, we don't want it. And part of the problem is nobody's listening. So when I decided to run, I waited to see if anybody else would. I was gonna be the best volunteer ever, and I was gonna put out all the signs and send them money and do the whole thing. And it kept saying open, 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 open on the party play. So on the 3rd, I got up and I drove, because there are only 3 days you can do this, so I got up and I drove to the city. When I got there, they said, who are you? My name's Rhonda Easterman, I'm about to run for the seat. So I had 74 days to visit 77 counties, and my apologies, this is the first time I've been to this one, because 74 days and 77 counties, it's a lot to cover. But I carried the state in a 3-way, because apparently I wasn't the only one that waited till the last minute. There were 3 of us that filed on that day. I carried the state with a 70% margin. Now, all that to say, that is proof that one person can actually do something. Because this is one of the things I hear all the time from people. My vote doesn't matter. My vote doesn't matter. Just one person, what does my vote matter? Well, I'm proof that one person can actually make a difference. My race is a statewide race. It's not, it has nothing to do with your district, has nothing to do with your county, my race is a statewide race, Jasmine's a statewide race, Cyndi's a statewide race. It is 100% popular vote. Every single one of your votes matter. So what we need from all of you is, I'm stacked up against my opposition, it's just me and one other on my ballot. He's already got over $500,000. But that doesn't buy votes. It buys ads. It buys billboards and TV ads. That's what it buys. What I need is the people. I need people to promote me. I need people to follow me on my Facebook. I need people to share my content. And I need you to go out and recruit. I need you, every one of you, to go out and find people and say, did you vote in June? No? Why? What was your reason? Are you not registered? Let's fix it. You didn't need to ride? Well, I can help you with that too. You don't know anything about politics? I get that one often too. I don't know anything about politics. Well, let's join a club. Let's have a club together. We will schedule to read the ballot together. We'll talk about it. Everybody pitching in their ideas. Do that. My vote doesn't matter. Telling my story. And for every excuse, there's a reason why they should. But more importantly, say, look, if we don't all start getting involved, instead of just 1 out of 4 of us, 1 out of 4, 25%, we gotta have more than 25% care about this. I drive down through here, how many times did I pull over on my way from LaFleur County to here? Like 5, taking pictures, because it's gorgeous. We wanna keep it that way, don't we? The landscape, when you come across, is gorgeous. When you come across the Winding Stair Mountains, it is beautiful. And we pulled over so many times, and we took pictures. We pulled over at 3-6 Monument, took pictures. Everywhere we took pictures, because it is beautiful. I don't know how long it's gonna be that way. I'd like for it to be like that, for my grandchildren to make that same trek someday. That is what we're out there fighting, that's what we're protecting. My office, my agency, it will play some role, because of the public utilities part of it. Over time, this agency, this commission it was in the original Constitution. It's grown over time. When our lawmakers in the state level, some new industries apparently needs to have watchdogs keeping an eye on it, they've expanded it. Once upon a time, it didn't have telecommunications, wasn't a thing when you became a state, but it's expanded over time. In some ways, a lot of data centers will as well. We already have several. We don't yet know what the consequences of those will be. Isn't that how it works with industry? Years down the road, we discover the consequences. We never knew what was happening. I'd rather not have 45 of them before we figure it out, or 55, or whatever the case may be. I don't want that to be the thing that happens where we have so many of them. Once we say, oh, they drink all the water. I don't want that to happen. I do not want to have so many that we do not have a way to turn back the problems once they discover them. I'm a strong advocate for the environment, but also I'm going to be, I will follow the law to the letter, which means that when it comes to policy, and deciding those rules and those laws, I will have to follow the law to the letter. That means my seat's not the only important one you need to be paying attention to. Your representatives, your state senators, your governor, your US senator, your US rep, every seat on that ballot is critical because they're all going to play a role in what we end up with. We can just decide to just do nothing and be spectators. And that's what's happened. My grandma always told me, she said, there are 3 different kinds of people in the world. There's the doers, who get it done people. It's a very small group. The problems, down at the bottom, they're the ones always causing chaos. The biggest group is right in the middle, and they're just usually spectators. The spectators. They didn't cause the problem, they're not trying to solve the problem, they're just gonna stand back and watch, see if somebody else takes care of it. If it doesn't affect me, it's not my problem. And that's what we have, a lot of spectators. I need a bunch of doers. I need everybody to recruit people to vote like it's your second job. All right? My name is Rhonda Easterman. If anybody has any questions for me, I'll hang around afterwards as well. All right?